Michael, welcome back to our podcast. We're here for another month, and this is a little different than usual. You're not coming back from an international trip, so we'll have a different conversation than we usually do as you fight the jet lag and coming off the plane.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start this month a little different. I want to start with a little personal attack, looking at the details of your life. And we had a conversation just a couple weeks ago, and you were in the middle of harvest, and you were being honest and open about the issues you were dealing with, and just being very transparent to get support. And I'm thinking that as a leader, it can be very lonely, right? And I remember you had a conversation with a neighborhood back from where you grew up, that those Vosses, they're leaders. Mm. And this will run through a thread through our conversation, David. I got to thinking about you and your focus on leadership. And your whole life, as I look back and talk to your parents, there's been a thread of that where you are driven to develop leaders. And I want to, before we get started with our normal flow of what's happening, I want you to reflect a little bit on the drive you have to develop leaders. Your paid work before you joined us, your work now. I mean, when you talk, it's going to end up around the conversation of, I want local leaders, I want national leaders, I want global leaders, I want to develop leaders, I want to develop leaders. It's just a theme which carries a burden, because that means you're always tied to other people, and your work depends on them to follow along. Could you talk a little bit just about what that means to you for your drive, but also the pressures that brings on you? And as leaders listen to this, how you get help to cope with that, both telling yourself right thinking, but with your cohort around you.
Yeah. Wow, Jay. Yeah, let's talk about it. So the two things in there, how the drive for that and maybe the reasons for that. Mm-hmm. And then the second one was what here? The pressure of it and
how you deal with that as a leader.
How you deal with it.
Everybody that's listening to this, as they're doing the same work, are going to face the same pressure.
Yeah. Well, the first one, the drive, let's talk about that. Some of it is nature, and some of it's nurture, we'll say, right? The way I was nurtured in my family, I go back 5 generations, at least on a piece of paper, a chart that I drew, and from a big book that I was given about my family heritage. My family is full of leaders. And so naturally, on our farm, we would work side by side, beside each other in manual labor activities. And what would the conversations be about? They would be about leaders, and they would particularly be about effective and ineffective leaders in the biblical text, leaders in our current day. That was a large part of our conversations that we talked about. And so I instilled into me early was people go where their leaders go, and people are like their leaders. And so that I really got a taste of the importance of leadership, and that if you want to be an impact in the world, you can lead other people, but if you lead and equip people to become leaders, you can have a multiplicative impact on the world. Certainly early on in my life, some of the feedback I received was, you're a sharp talker, you're a frank speech guy. Probably the best people you would work with is leader types, and less people that are that need more patience or more a lengthy process of shepherding, you might say. So leadership has been important in my life. As far as the attacks that you mentioned early on and the pressures of it, it's I don't know how to succinctly talk about it, other than, the instance you're talking about from a few weeks ago. Boy, it does. There are moments where Paul talks about conflicts without and fears within, meaning conflicts on the inside, conflicts on the outside, and conflicts and fears on the inside of your work. And there's a lot of financial pressure. At the time I called you, it was financial pressure. But on top of it was leaders who are going a different direction. Because when you're working with people who have fields and people who are leaders, they're not just docile sheep. They are strong people with their own gifts and their own work and their own fields, and they choose to do and go different directions, and that can put you in conflict, that can put you in disappointment. So you have quite a range of emotions, and some of the times all those things of financially and people's disagreements and conflict all hit at once.
Yeah.
Or so it feels. And then you have to have a community of people around you and a church around you. You have to have people around you where you can lament for a while and help you more and help you lament and then get back on it. So
I think that's very succinct. You have to have your team where you can lament. You can be open, honest, but they're also capable and equipped to bring truth back to you to lift you up. And I know we've had conversation before. There's in our lives, sometimes we're so far down in the pit we can't even see out.
Oh, yeah.
So we know we're going to get ourselves out. So as leaders, listen to this, is you need to have a team that's going to be there and support you. And you have multiple teams. I mean, you've got your dad, your sons on the farm. You've got your city elders here that, we use the word uncrackable. No matter what happens, we're going to be there together with you. One of the fun things I say is, it's going to take more than that to chase me away when there's conflict going on, because that's the reality of it. So I want to, because seeing you're very real. And what you see is Michael. You don't hide things, which is, I think, also very powerful. But also that because you're a leader, you see things nobody else sees. And then you go after those. So that's just an encouragement to people to get a team, be open, be honest, and let them shepherd. That's really what it comes back to.
And let them shepherd, yeah.
Shepherd you, not the apostolic. My job isn't to shepherd your apostolic work. My job is to shepherd you, and it's help you.
And there is a difference there. It
Absolutely.
may sound like a slight nuance, but that mindset is important. And go back to what you said. As a leader, you have to be willing to be completely transparent and lay it all out there. When we talked the other day, I was at the end of my rope. The thing is about leaders, investing in leaders, you always have to be on the top of the game, and you always have to put everything you have into it. And so you tend to burn the candle at both ends. You tend to think that you can do more than in 6 months than it would probably take 6 years typically to do, but you still push ahead. And so you do come up against times where you're mentally and physically exhausted. You're beat down by finances, by conflicts, by people going different directions. You're disappointed. And so you do have your lows are quite low, and that's part of it. Now you can certainly work to temper some of that to some degree, but some of it is just the reality of working with leaders.
Well, and I've seen it as you've developed wisdom in just the few years I've known you, less than 60. In those few years, I've watched you grow in your wisdom, and that wisdom helps you deal with those things. But you always need a team. And so I'm going to talk from my side as the teammate. When you're down and need that, lift out of the pit, it's funny because I might be at my lowest when you need that, which then fills my bucket, because my job is to support you. That's the way I'm wired. So it's interesting how that works out. So for those of you out there that are supporting apostolic leaders, be ready, but also think about your own wiring. That's a gift that you get to do. It's not a burden, it's a gift. Because kind of how I see it. It's like, I cherish those times. So I just want to orient people to just what this work is really like, because we're talking about leaders a lot today. So thanks for following on my bunny trail.
Yeah.
But you talked about harvest. It's in the bin. It was a different year because of the way things worked out with your sons But again, you've got your father there. So how was harvest?
How is harvest? All the crop is in the bin. It is in the storage place. That is a great feeling. You do a year worth of, or 7, 8 months of labor, of manual labor, of the season. In the season, you do 6, 8 months before that of the planning and strategizing. So it's an 18-month cycle. Now it's in the bin.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty safe. Not completely safe yet, but it's a great feeling. My sons were not around this year. They're both in in different universities and different focuses at this season. So it's different not having them around. My father is around. My father's 77 this year, back in May, and he still works like he's 25. We're still putting in long hours every day, early morning till the sun comes, before the sun comes up, and long after the sun goes down, you're still out there. So I talked with my father this morning, and he's been winding down and resting up a little bit, but still working each day. And he said, "Boy, what a season we had." And in harvest, and especially in the way we're wired, you tend to just work hard, and you're thankful at the moment, but you don't express a lot of it. You tend to be reflective later and become more thankful later. In the heat of the battle, the heat of the moment, the main focus is accomplishing the work to get the harvest in. But certainly he's been in a reflective place here lately. What a joy to be able to work with your father. I've worked, so this would be my, close to my 30th year of working side by side with my father as an adult. Mm-hmm. Before that, obviously, I grew up in his household, and so I worked with him those first 20 years as well. So it was a good year. If you would have talked to me 2 weeks ago, we would have had this podcast. This would have been completely different. I was in a different place.
I'm aware.
I felt attacked. I felt a bit at the end of my rope that I couldn't move forward, and I couldn't see to the top. I didn't see a lot of daylight, and now that we're rested, now that some things are past us, we have renewed hope and renewed vision.
And for other leaders, is following with my theme, that your farming is your tent making. It gives you the flexibility to do things in your ministry because it's just finances. But it's more than that. And that's if you are a leader and you have to provide for yourself, one of the things with leadership is you don't see the product of your work necessarily in your lifetime. You could be planting the seeds that may not grow until you're gone. Especially at my stage of life, I feel that a lot. But you see at the harvest, you get to see it. It's concrete. Here's the fruit of my labor. I can enjoy life. You're very much in that Ecclesiastes mode. Your dad now can look back and say, with you, here's the work of our hands.
Yeah.
It's well done. And so that's really, again, to keep a balance in life, it's really good for you. And we've had this conversation. Should I quit farming? No. It's your anchor.
Yeah.
And I know every harvest, I'm very reflective, missing being into work beside my father harvesting. It's still in my blood, even though I haven't done it for years.
But yeah, working beside your father is very special. I really appreciate that. And it's fun for me to watch that. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, it's in the heat of the moment and all those long hours, you wonder, man, why am I doing this? But certainly afterwards, in moments during, you get little windows. I think of the other side, small little glimpses of heaven, where you just get a sense that this is close in that moment of what it's like to be united, to have a singular work, to work together genuinely with someone over a long, long period of time. You mentioned Ecclesiastes. My family and my father did a lot with the book of Ecclesiastes. Would read that book, and vanity of vanities. Everything's meaningless and everything's worthless. So why would you do anything? And in essence, you quoted Ecclesiastes 9 there, which is at the end of it all. What are you to do? And Solomon talks about how you're to enjoy your drink, enjoy your food, enjoy your wife, and enjoy the work of your hands. So enjoy your labor and genuinely enjoy all those things. Enjoying our work. We don't have control over all of it, but we put everything we have in all of it.
Which you said, a glimpse of the other side. And that, I know there's incredible joy in the process. And if we're aware, we know that we're living in the kingdom now. But we're also, you're developing tools for revelation, for our networks around the world. One of the things I've been thinking about as we're going through that is the comfort that revelation gives us to be established, because this is what's coming. And if you are paying attention and do the work of being established in the gospel, no big deal. You're ready, which is, I think, that powerful tool. So tell us about the tools.
Yeah, we've been working on Revelation for a little while now. We've been in Johannine literature for most of 2025. And we're halfway through Revelation now. We're coming up to the final victory and the final battle, which is Armageddon. And that would put you at chapter 19. And my goodness, I think Revelation, what are we learning in Revelation? I would say so many people view the mission of Christianity that we just need to get more Christians, more people saved, so that all nations, all people, all languages, all tongues, all kings will hear, and then Christ will come back. And as if our Sunday mornings and our mission efforts, that's really the ultimate thing we're doing. That's how we follow the Great Commission, is we just need to get all nations and all tongues, and we can kind of check a list off, and then Christ will come back. But that's not what John is doing in Revelation. He is assessing the churches. He's assessing them and telling them what? To grow more mature. And to grow more mature, particularly in his book of signs, which is 2 through 12 in his Gospel of John, and then 13 through 17, which is the Upper Room Discourse. And he's talking about abiding. And the way you mature is you abide in him, which is remaining in the teachings. He says that very clearly in the Gospel of John. And we've separated it out into all these different things and made it more complex than what it actually is. He's talking about he's talking about in Revelation. He's assessing them, telling them to remain in his teachings, which is his 3 letters package, and which is for 2nd, 3rd John. And then the 2 main parts of the Gospel of John that I just talked about. So if you have those in context and in our minds, very easy to understand the framework of Revelation. The chapters 5 through, he does the assessments in chapters 2 and 3, and then chapters 4 rather, all the way through 22, 5, 22, 6, is the main part of the book. And he does 3 cycles, the judgments of the judgments. And the first set of judgments is the seal, opening the seal, 7 seals. And you have that beautiful song before, who's worthy to open up the scroll and who's worthy to break all these seals and open them up. You've got the trumpet judgments, and then you have the bowl judgments, and they're a cyclical thing. And so it's not a chronological book about how things are going to unfold. It's a cyclical thing. And so they kind of repeat themselves, with the bowl judgments being more on the wrath piece. So I can begin to see now how to use Revelation to establish churches, rather than this code that you have to break, rather than this way of thinking about the Great Commission, like we have to get all these nations and tongues checked off. That's not what John is doing in that book. And so we have to use it how John intended us to use it to mature churches. And we're able to, I think we're able to now get a tool to be able to do that for ourselves, and now be able to take that tool and do that in our fields in the 50, 60 some countries around the world that we're working in.
And the timeliness is incredible. But I was trapped in Revelation as a kind of a mystical book, the mystery to crack, which was kind of fun, but it was meaningless. It didn't help me at all. In fact, it created the fog where I couldn't see the purpose. But putting it in the context of being part of Johannine literature,
Mm-hmm.
I see it as John's capstone, where he's providing, he was given the visions to provide this capstone of what we need to know to process our times and still abide. I think that's the critical part. And I was talking about using this as a tool to establish churches. And people say, well, this isn't any value to establish churches. It may be the most important one because as times change, as we go through times there, as people are being persecuted, slaughtered around the world for their faith, how do you abide? Well, John told us in his other letters, here's how you abide.
Yeah.
And let me be very frank, here's what's going to be.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing tool. And to have it accessible rather than just sitting on the shelf, that how many people never read it because they just couldn't understand it.
Yeah. I think most leaders avoid Revelation.
Yeah.
Because even if there's aspects you can put your mind around, what good is it to your churches? So, and that's because we've lost John's intention. We've lost John's purpose. And take, for example, when they talk about, most translations translate a piece. Let's see, where is it? It's I can't remember the exact spot it's in. It's in the trumpet judgments where he's talking about the tribulation. The great tribulation is how most translations, but it's the NRSV translates it as the ordeal, and this is very similar to it's what Paul has mentioned that we're not destined for the day of wrath, but we're in the time of the Gentiles. And then when John's talking about it, he calls it the great ordeal. When the great ordeal time is up, that NRSV translation is just so beautiful and helps you understand that we're in the time of the ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the ordeal right now. We're in the ordeal. Since Christ left and set up the church age, we're in the ordeal. And the day of wrath is those days that are coming when all these judgments are going to happen. The bowl, trumpet, and the seal. I went backwards there, but of how it went.
Again, it's like temporal. It's not
chronological. It's
that's the important thing to remember.
Yeah, because John is cyclical in all his writings. You can see the way he writes he's a circular writer and thinker. So he circles back to his ideas all the time. He interweaves them together. So that has been enlightening and helpful to understand that because that connects to the other point that you're making here, and that is it helps you understand we live in the time of the ordeal, and we've got to be able to interpret our days that we live in the days in which we live. And the only way to be able to do that is you have to view the world through Christ's lens. What is the priorities we can get that we need to have? We can get all sorts of energized and around politics, around our governments. We should be involved in those things, but those things don't define the view of the world. What Christ is saying, the vision that he gave John and that John is relaying to the churches and then ultimately to us, is he's saying all the economies of the world are going to collapse. That's part of the trumpet and the bowl judgments they're going to collapse. And in a matter of an hour, figuratively or literally, he's saying that all peace is going to be plucked away. One of the horses is going to come in, and the angel is going to ride one of the horses, and the horse is going to create complete chaos. So it's not like we're trying to make every language, every tongue. It puts you on a different view of Revelation and all of John's literature, and it really just gives you confidence on what we are to be about as leaders.
You really framed it well there. We're in the ordeal now, but you also talked about, you would say we're in the kingdom now too. And the two exist at the same time, as opposed to having this book where, people will try to crack the code and know when the end times will be. Well, we already been told we can't do that. So why bother? Stay focused on this is a tool John gave us to help establish our churches and help them process times. So while they're in the ordeal, they're not lost. And it's applicable no matter what time of the frame you're in.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow or 1,000 years. Time is such an odd construct when you put it in the context of God. Because
Yeah, I think the confidence that what John is doing is what Peter was doing, is what Paul is doing. Those three leaders in particular and their co-workers with all their books, you can put all 27 letters of the New Testament into those three canonical sections, those three canonical pieces. And we as regular people today, we can understand what those authors are doing. That gives you and Revelation is not outside the bounds of that. We can understand it, the framework of what John's core purposes were, and we can use it today to mature and deeply root our people. And that's what we should be doing. And that's why I tend to get passionate about, we viewed it so long in a systematic eschatology viewpoint, and we've had those glasses on. And one of the four views of how to pre-trib, post-trib, and all all these four main, or five, you can put them into five sometimes, main views, and they just get you into a place where you get backed into a corner and you get stuck. And then your confidence goes out the window and you don't use it and you avoid the book. And that's exactly what John didn't want people to do. And so we've got to get out of that framework and those glasses, shed those glasses, and get back to what the author himself is saying and his purposes. And then it unlocks it and it brings the confidence to use it today.
if you think John's intent, we're going to keep that in mind. His intent wasn't to create a book where we had to crack the code. It was to give us, use the word confidence to abide. If we abide, we'll have confidence. So
he says couple different spots. He says, and if you listen to the book on the page that I'll do about Revelation, you'll capture this in more detail. But he says, this calls for endurance.
mm-hmm.
This calls for wisdom. And when he's talking about the bowl judgments in particular, which is the days of this, that's the 7.5 years of God's wrath, which is after the time of the ordeal, the time of the Gentiles when it's up. Then the 7.5 years, the time and again, the time and a half. That's the 7 years of wrath. And that's I lost what I was thinking there for a second. But he says, time for endurance, and this calls for wisdom. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to give you endurance, deep roots, and wisdom.
When you're surrounded by chaos and destruction and horrific things,
Oh my goodness.
you'll be able to endure. You'll have confidence in, staying the course, confidence in abiding in Christ. And so that's, of course, you could say, just seeing our conversation, you can pick up on the energy of the assignment.
He's even saying many will die.
Yes.
But the reason they will die is because in this time, more people will see it and will repent.
Mm-hmm.
And so even in the last days, there'll be a massive amount of people that come. And yet he still says there'll be a massive amount of people that will not repent. 2 of the trumpet judgments talk about, and this was the time for repentance, and they do not do it. And so you in these last days of the ordeal, there'll be opportunities for massive amount of people to come in. And both will happen. Some will come in and some won't. But until then, we as leaders, we have to be about the main things that he's given us to do. And that is to abide. And the way you abide is through the commandments, or the commandment, as Jesus called it in the Gospel of John, as John called it, which is the teachings that the apostles gave.
It's a plug, the story. If you haven't been through the story, or it's the idea of building a biblical theology, having a whole story as one context, that it all ties together. And which I'm going to shift now, thinking about it all ties together. And the story, we're in our time in the story. And right now, we're building a team, a global team, but we're building it differently. When you think of building, you think of, well, I've got to hire staff, we've got to get this money, but you're looking at it differently now. Why are you looking at this growth in the way you are now, as far as expanding who we are? Does that make sense?
It does. It makes sense to me. Our global team is growing. Our national team is growing. Our local team is growing. But here's the thing, Jay. When people think about teams that are growing, what do they think about? They think about more staff members, and they think about more salaries and wages that are going to those staff members. That's not how we're viewing it. Our global team is growing, and that's because people and leaders that are capturing these ideas, some are so captured by them and so understand their role in the global sphere that they say, we want to be useful 10% of our time, 20% of our time. We've got some that are doing 99% of their time. And we don't pay them. We don't pay for their travel. We don't pay for anything. And yet they have said, we want to be part of the team. We want to be part of the work. How can we be useful?
And why are they saying that?
Because they have a conviction. They have a conviction that these sets of patterns is what Christ Church needs. And they have a conviction that they have a role within it, a role to play. And so they are tent making, they're leading their own sets of churches. We've talked on this podcast some about some of the women that have stepped up in the years past. The example I'm thinking of here most recently in the last month is we had a leader from Spain who from Western Europe went to Eastern Europe, went to Kyiv, Ukraine in the middle of the war, and had a massive impact. Now, that Ukrainian leader actually is here now physically today. I'm meeting with him right after this. But again, that leader was not on the global scene of my radar of leading and equipping and shaping. I knew about him quite well a year ago, but now he's spending part of his time in the global work. And that's what you see. And I think it's a slow way to build versus just giving somebody money and saying you're on the staff. But it's a rooted way to build. And it's a multi-generational way to build because
That's my question. It's a rooted way.
Well, because they're convicted, not because they're convinced by the amount of money they're going to get or the workload that they might have. They might be able to balance it and fit it into their life. This is their life. And that's what I think we should be so encouraged about is our global team is growing and we're not advertising.
And the evidence is obvious.
Yeah,
So obvious.
we're not and so it's such an upside down way that if you build a business, you build a parachurch organization, that's how you do it. You get headhunters, you get people that you put a good salary, you get put together, package together, you put a good job description together, and then you try to work that out.
When God brought you to us, he brought you because of your rooting. You were wired to root leaders. We were dusting off in my generation. You're rooting, and that's bringing. We're seeing the fruit of that. You're Western Europe to Eastern Europe. Where I'm always struck by one woman in India.
Yeah,
It's sold out.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to now hiring sign out front. The work is what draw them in, but it's not just along with drawing them in. That comes from a lot of work, and you're just coming off some workshops. Talk about how you are doing work around the world, just preparing leaders for generations to come. It's a new way of operating. Your global workshops.
Yeah, global workshops right now are happening. They've been happening for about 20 days. They happen for about 10 more days. It's a season of time where we are trying to get more people to make progress in their development. And so it's a lot, most of it's online. It's happening. There's about 1,000 people that are participating, a lot of differently from India, and different civilizations, but a lot of them from India. And the Indian team, there's 20 some leaders of leaders that are organizing all these workshops, that are leading and facilitating all these workshops. Some of our global team is doing some of the technological aspects and the online, but the teams around the world are doing everything else.
Your teams are growing.
The teams are growing.
We saw that last night. We had a meeting last night, and we talked about it afterwards. That 5 brand new leaders were sitting around the table.
Oh, you're talking locally now, yeah.
Well, it's all together, right?
It is.
So you're talking India.
I was talking
You're talking Europe.
talking
The same thing locally, where your team is growing. It's really, and I remember our conversation. I think it was yesterday. Just you're passionate about local, national, global. How are your leaders growing, and how's that look for you? And what's your vision for the future for developing that?
Well, locally, we've got to be doing the same thing that we're doing globally and nationally. We've got to be planting churches. We've got to be equipping more leaders. And so I am really encouraged. We did have new leaders at our conversation last night. We're going to have we're going to have new churches that are being started here. A couple have already started. A couple by the next couple months, we'll have all those leaders will have some new churches, perhaps. So that we need to continually be pushing people up to be stronger leaders locally. Nationally, we're trying to empower.
So if you grow your local, how's that helping nationally?
Well, some of those people will, it's part of their role, will end up being naturally. A lot of them, probably 80% of them will just stay local, and they'll be great local, and they'll be faithful, stable, great local, and they'll expand to here. They'll shepherd here. You need all those gifts on the team in order to take care of the families and lead the families, lead the churches. But then some of them will want to take 5% of their time. Some of them will take 20% of the time. Some of them may want to take 50% of their time and do things outside the local cities and our local state. Here, they'll want to help with, they may have friends, they may have connections. We may see it in them and push them towards it, but they'll become coworkers nationally. Just like we're talking about Western Europe helping Eastern Europe, the same thing is happening there. That's in that civilization of Europe. That leader said, I need to be doing this locally, but I need to be doing this in my civilization. And there's ample opportunity. So I'm going to connect with a global team, that's us, and look to see how I can be deployed and see how I can be used in the civilization. So that's how it will go locally to nationally.
And deployment. You have strong leaders, and if you have those and well established, they'll be willing to be deployed if it's in their nature. That's how God has wired them. And so it gives you resources. You use the national perspective, but you're also using some of our people deploying internationally, like for coaching. So it just gives you more resources, but it also gives you the support that comes from having a vibrant network locally that can impact and be impacted. Last night we had a Ukrainian leader impact our time, ties us together. It's a family of families that's much bigger than just Ames, Des Moines. And speaking of bigger than Ames, Des Moines, you're getting ready to travel again.
I am. Yes.
Another trip off to India. Why? Why are you going to India again?
Well,
Just for the food?
just for the food. I have found some good dishes that I really do enjoy.
Oh, it's good food.
What's coming up is some celebrations there. So these working workshops are a really big push right before the end of the year here to get the work accomplished. And we're going to go there and we're going to eat together. We're going to drink together. We're going to have symposiums, dialogue together. We're going to share the table together. We have 3 different celebrations. We have one where we're taking all the original partners from 25 years ago. We've been in India since the early 80s, but we entered a new chapter about 25 years ago in the early 2000s. And we're going to assemble all of those original partners. And about half of them are with us today, still working with us. And the other half are somewhere either not working with us or kind of lukewarm yet. And so we're going to spend some time with those original ones and really challenge them to step up, to say, this is what we believe that God's doing. This is how everyone can play a role. I mean, some of these are just massive networks yet. But many of them are stuck in institutionalism, and have not made enough progress towards the way of that Christ and his apostles have laid out for us in the New Testament. So we're going to put a big push. Really looking forward to seeing some of those people I haven't seen in quite some time. So we'll be having those conversations along with these celebration events, and then interspersed, we'll be so busy in between all those with individual church networks where we'll visit and encourage them. And we're going to have some late nights. I'm already hearing about them till early in the morning.
They'll milk every drop out of you they can.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is great.
It is. It's a rewarding time, and the celebrations themselves are so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Fun seems like a cheap word there, but it's rewarding to see all the number of people, all the leaders, all the networks, and we're coming together in a singular different spots around India, but you can see that people are owning it for themselves.
Yeah, this will be a plug for upcoming podcasts. When we talk about your trip after you get back, I'd encourage everybody to look at the pictures of the celebrations and see the faces. You know, you can't put it in words because it's like they're ready to explode. There's so much inside and that's just leaking out of their excitement of the work they're doing.
Yeah, that you mentioned that, and I have to say, in one of these working workshops, I was told the story and saw some of the work in Sri Lanka. There's a female leader who, in that particular area, there's a lot of persecution that's happening. Just devastating stories and realities that are happening. She's in the middle of it. Her church is there, but she's in the middle of it. Just death and destruction. Went through some of the working workshops and ended up being absolutely convicted that the church needs to get back to the early church patterns, that the patterns you see in Acts are normative. Convicted on it, wrote a paper. It was translated and I read it. What a beautiful work and conviction that she has in the middle of the ordeal that she's in.
We just talked about the revelation.
Yeah.
Able to endure, able to abide.
And rather than turn inward and lose hope, which would be easy to do, she's doing what Revelation is talking about. She's abiding. She's actually getting back to the commandment that John calls it, the commandments, which is the didache, but that's John's language. So we'll use that when we're in the Johannine literature. But she's doing that. And what more encouragement can you get other than you can see people maturing and you can see people sticking to the teaching? That I think that's what encouraged the original apostolic leaders. And certainly I find that so encouraging when you see that work.
I'm struck by the contrast to that example or the celebrations, what we've been talking about against the institutional church that's an organization. And from my observation, I see the church in the West, especially, marked by fear and no hope. And so they take things in their own hands and try to manufacture some kind of structure, mostly turning inward versus enduring, abiding. So that's really exciting to hear. And Michael, as I observe this across generations, I span 2 generations now in this work. There's a clear line of demarcation between recovery. India is a great place to experience that, because they were with us early to recover the way of Christ and the apostles. And that was a battle. And some weren't up for the battle, good, bad, and different. But the ones that stayed with it and are part of the process. But now it's rooting, and it's a different time. And you can then maybe pull some of those leaders back because they're not caught in that recovery battle. It's here, and we can establish, and the fruit shows up in the celebration. So well done, to our apostolic team as a local guide. It's very exciting to be able to support that. So encouraging you to take joy in the work that's been done, and the Spirit's been moving in front of you. It's clear to me from the moment I saw you anointed, it was clear that the Spirit had anointed you to take this role. So as you travel in India, it's a rough place to travel because it's a warfare, dark spiritual things happening there. But I'm looking forward to hear how this trip goes. And it's also exciting. You're taking one of our young 3rd gen leaders with you to give him a experience in ministry. Talking about being able to deploy. And this is a young man who, run into a wall. Okay, how many times? He's ready to do the work. And he's getting better all the time. So that's exciting. But good travels coming, and look forward to when you get back. And I appreciate the conversation today, because you what's the word? You endured some of my whim to talk about some of the things that I see emerging in your life and of the work you do and the team around you. So thank you. And to all of you, thanks for joining us this month, and we look forward to our next conversation.
Further up, Jay.
And further in.
Further up and further in.